Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Secretary. Welcome back to what I think you're right, Mr. Chairman, as describing our new world of communication and technology in support of it. I usually spend time during the time you give me under President's item for your agenda to address many various things, most of which are points of pride and updates for you in the college community. And I see that in our attendance today, I have several of my colleagues and people who are interested in the college. Uh, I would also note that I've been attempting as best as possible to communicate with all of you via email and telephone and some Zoom meetings about what's been happening with the college since we last had our special meeting. And I have given you all of the documents that are routine for our meetings, and they are before you. But I don't plan to talk about them. In fact, I don't plan to talk about much about the college because I have decided that the best and most appropriate thing for me to do is to spend my time paying homage to one of our colleagues. You may have seen and you may have read that Monica Casarez, an instructor in the surgical technologist program, passed away on April 12th of the coronavirus. Miss Cazares was 49 years old when she passed away. She was an alumna of our college. No surprise, she was in the surgical technologist program where she graduated. And when she passed away, she was an instructor in our surgical technologist program. Miss Cazares was born in Canada, and she was uh, the child of immigrants from Central America, and she graduated from Canton High School. It was 2006 when she graduated from us here at Henry Ford College. Of course, she had an associate's degree in surgical technology. She was a classmate of one of my proudest colleagues, at least one of the colleagues I'm most proud of, and that's a young woman who's a leader named Kiambra Pearson. Now, I didn't know Miss Cazares very well, but I do know Miss Pearson well, and I have taken the opportunity to talk to Miss Pearson about who she called one of her best friends, Miss Cazares. Miss Pearson was a colleague of hers, both when they were in class at Henry Ford College and when they were colleagues just this year. They both earned their bachelor's degrees together from Siena Heights in healthcare management. Of course, then Miss Cazares became a surgical technologist and she was certified. I've learned a lot about Miss Cazares over the last week, and I want to tell you a few things about her because I truly do believe that this college is a college that honors each other as teammates and as colleagues. This woman's life was only best described as a journey in public service. I did not know her well, but I wish that I had. After learning about her for the last week, I can tell you she must have made an impression on nearly every single person she met. I have heard stories upon stories about her joy and her passion, her advocacy, her courage. And candidly, this woman must have had more energy than three people put together. But if I had to sum up everything I've learned about Miss Cazares in the last week, I would tell you her life was marked by one of service. Let me tell you a little bit about that. In 1995, Miss Cazares began her career at Southwest Solutions in its early childhood program. Now, that's a public service entity in Southwest Detroit, and she moved up after her decade there into the field of public relations manager for that organization. If you read the Detroit News spread on this woman's life, you'll see that her colleagues there and the erstwhile CEO praised her for her passion, her ability to advocate, and her public service. After a decade there at Southwest Solutions, she went on, of course, with her now new ability to be a surgical technologist, and she started working at Harper Hospital in Detroit. In 2012, she came back to Southwest Solutions, heading its wellness program for adults suffering from mental illness. Besides being a surgical technologist, Ms. Cazares had time to become a business coach and a consultant. She actually founded her own company, a consulting company called Blue Order. She would help by using her bilingual skills to help people who are entrepreneurs and help them navigate the healthcare field. In 2017, Prosper US Detroit hired Ms. Cazares to provide training to aspiring small business entrepreneurs in Southwest Detroit. She recently co-founded Southwest Detroit Restaurant Week, which was launched during the Hispanic Heritage Month with a team of volunteers to celebrate the diversity of the Latin American cuisine in Detroit. If you're like me, you're starting to wonder if she had two people, maybe an identical twin who could do all this, but it was all her. And then she came back to become an instructor here in our surgical technologist program. But before that, she was a teacher at Sanford Brown College in Dearborn and Baker College in those programs. And she was a program director there at Baker College. Last month, as the COVID-19 pandemic started to come in on Southeast Michigan, it would be no surprise to you, but it would be an amazing amount of courage that Ms. Cazares returned to the front lines, working in the Detroit Medical Center to help those suffering from the pandemic. She expressed reservations about this, but still did it. If you were to go to her Facebook post, you would see a quote about what she was deciding to do. And that was, working in a hospital provides some of the richest experiences, friendships with top quality people, and tons of true belly laughs. But she said, I would be lying if I said I wasn't at least a bit nervous to be there now. One of her best friends is quoted as saying, she felt like she had an obligation to the people and the mission. Less than a week after she started to help those suffering from the pandemic, she herself fell ill and was diagnosed with the virus. She spent a week on the ventilator before she passed away. She was married to what I can gather was her life mate, Jorge, who also contracted the virus and is now recovering from it. I had the privilege of speaking with Mr. Cazares, who gave me the honor of calling him by his first name, Jorge. And he tells me that he's recovering, but he's stricken with grief and still trying to find which way is up at the loss of his wife. I believe that Jorge is doing as well as he can. He's talking about the future. He's talking about how proud he was of his wife. And he was glad to hear how we at Henry Ford College intended to praise and laud our erstwhile colleague and his wife for what she was, a woman of service. I think one quote from Ms. Cazares shortly before she passed away shows how great her relationship was with Jorge. She wrote a note to her students, and the note said, one of the screening questions I was asked upon admission to the hospital was, do you feel safe at home? She told her students, yes. And she added with a smile, and loved. Honestly, and this is a quote from Ms. Cazares, could I ask for anything more? The most important thing I need is positivity. And she told her students, those students that you and I serve today, I promise to follow up with an update soon. Ms. Cazares was our colleague, and she was our partner in service to students. Her husband told me many things that were wonderful about her, but the thing that he and I both agreed was the most important was her passion for service. I hope that I'm able to help him celebrate her birthday on our nation's birthday on July 4th. He and I have begun plans that if we're able, we'll celebrate her life and her service to our college and our students back on our campus. It's a sad day, and I want everyone from Henry Ford College to know that we honor Ms. Cazares. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.